Hi, I'm Sanera Madani, and I'm a mom of two, a daughter of an immigrant, and an unlikely entrepreneur who went from scaling an idea to $1 billion business. Yes, $1 billion business. Along the way, I learned that less than 2% of female founders ever hit 1 million in revenue, and I became obsessed on a mission to change that. I believe that there is so much gatekeeping in business knowledge, and that we as female entrepreneurs should be learning from other female founders and leaders who have broken the statistics. Since I never went to CEO school, I've had to learn it all the hard way, but you shouldn't have to, because we believe that you deserve to have it all. And honestly, nothing bad happens when women make more money. Grab a seat because class is officially in session. Welcome to CEO School. Hi everyone, welcome back to the CEO School podcast. I'm your host, Sanera Madani, and we are still in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest. By the way, this is exactly why I'm the queen of time hacking. I was talking on the Inc. Founder House about productivity and how we can do all the things. We can do it all, not all at once, but we can stay focused on the things that we want to do. And it's really about time management. And I swear I'm like the biggest time hacker of all. And I love when I come to these conferences to pair it up with some amazing friends that I get to meet, amazing speakers, and I bring them to you live from the location. And it's been working out so incredible this year. I hope you've been enjoying the show this way. It has been so fun. We're like renting the coolest, cutest Airbnbs from awesome women in business as well and supporting local businesses. So it's been super, super fun for us to be live. And with that, I am so excited to introduce a new friend of mine that I've now recently met through 2 speaking engagements, Deb Dutta. Deb is the CEO of Criya, an AI tech startup backed by Y Combinator. She is focused on helping all women tell their stories. And honestly, her story is so incredible. She is an immigrant founder, and she's had 13 plus years of experience working for companies like PayPal and Microsoft on the tech side as a product leader. She had this idea for developing a product and went out on her own and out from California, wanted to raise capital as it should be. It's the home of raising venture capital. Did you know that 75% of all venture capital actually goes to California, and the rest of the states are left fending for the 25%, with 3 primary markets being in New York, Boston, and Texas. So if you're not from, we're all fighting for that last bit of capital. And here we have Deb, a woman of color, an immigrant founder who recently in this market closed a $5 million seed round. And so welcome, Deb, to the show. I have a million questions for you. Welcome to CEO School.
Thanks for having me, Sanera.
I'm so excited. We got an opportunity. So we were speaking on the Harvard panel together. And it was such an amazing experience. It was so incredible. How was it for you?
Oh my gosh, it was I couldn't believe I'm there. And we were sharing the stage with the likes of you. And I mean, it was a moment.
It was such a moment, everyone. It was so special. I wish there was a way to, sometimes it's really hard. I wish I could bring all of our audience with us at all these panels and things like that. And I have to get back the CEO of care.com. She was so incredible in her journey. She was everything who I want to be as a CEO. So it was so fun. It was such a moment. And then we got to share it with you. We got to do all the behind the scenes of Harvard and then take our little Harvard iconic photos. But it was so fun getting to know you, Deb. And some of the stuff that you were sharing, I literally was almost spitting out water on this panel because, over the last 10 years, I feel like I've experienced a lot of the same things that you experienced, being a woman in tech, building a technology-based platform, raising venture capital. But I would say that this last couple of years, the market is also, it's so tough. And when you announced that Criya was launching, you were able to, get into Y Combinator and then also now successfully close your round. I was like, I've got to show this to women everywhere that today we can still do this and raise the capital. So tell us a little bit about Criya's journey, the Y Combinator journey, and then getting to the check of confidence from your VCs.
Thanks for asking this question. So guys, I grew up in India. I'm a first generation immigrant. I came here to study computer science at Carnegie Mellon. I started my career as an engineer at Microsoft. And I mean, I come from a very middle class home. So for me, the whole American dream was basically pay off my loans and send money back home. And I still do that. So for me, a big part of this, like entrepreneurship was not even an option for me. Like I was the first entrepreneur. I'm that naive. I'm the first entrepreneur I actually knew. And I stumbled into the opportunity. The thing that happened was that I started growing on Instagram way back, like just putting my content out there. And the idea behind monetizing my brand and a skill set was a new idea at the time. So I started coding the first version of Criya, put it out there. And in a few days, I had like 100 users running businesses on Criya. I was so naive. Sunita, this is while I was head of product at PayPal, leading a team of over 100 engineers, product, and so on, right? So this was a side gig. But someone told me that, Deb, you shouldn't be running this on your own. It was a side hustle. So like, you need to register this as an entity. I didn't even think about this as an entrepreneurship gig, right? I took this to the bank, and the guy at the bank basically said, you can't do this. You don't have a green card. And I was already in the country for 13 years.
So you can't start a business on a student visa?
No, I was on a work visa.
A work visa.
And I was already here for 13 years in a position of, driving revenue for...
And you're not allowed to start a business?
Yes. I wasn't even taking money for it. It was a free product. And that's when I said, okay, what do I need to do? And they said, basically, I have to wait another 15 years to get my green card. And I was like, there's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
So basically, I spoke to a lawyer and he's like, Deb, like there's some dude sitting at Washington, D.C. who's going to make a decision when he gets your application. Despite your professional and academic credentials, he's going to put you in this bucket of 15 years, or he's going to choose to make that exception for you because there's this exception green card. So I took a year to build out my case. And this is where personal branding became important to me. Because the idea was there's someone who's out there who's going to Google you, and he's going to give you about 6 to 7 seconds to make that decision. So I started writing for Forbes. I started doing a lot of speaking engagements, volunteering, and all these things. And I reapplied in 1 year, and I got my green card in 14 days.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. So you made the exception.
And that's the whole thing. So it's become my life's mission to do that, right? Like it's so hard for us to do that. And a lot of us are not good at, I guess, articulating our accomplishments and convincing that stranger out there to make us the exception, right? Whether you're seeking a job or seeking capital, you need to be that exception. So that's the birth of Criya.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is like the greatest story ever. I love this for so many reasons. Well, congratulations on, like, you did not let 15 years of a green card stop you. You already had the product and you were like, I want to show that I can monetize this product through, and there's so much to say about like not needing someone's approval, but you literally needed someone's approval and you had just a few seconds to make that impression. And we talked about this just like on our last episode with Caitlin, the CEO of Planoly. She was just here. And one of the things that we're talking about, it's not an option anymore as a business or even as a business owner not to have our social profile. It is not an option anymore. The first thing people do is Google your social. We're not even going to a business's website anymore. We're not going to a founder's web. We're literally just checking them on our social media first and then making our key decisions about them. And it's of course, it's not surprising that even at a governmental institute, like you only have such a finite amount to make an impression. And so how did Criya support? So you were saying that you built a personal brand and were able to use that to make your case for your green card. How does Criya's product kind of play into that?
It's the same philosophy, right?
Okay.
I think if you needed a resume 10 years ago, you need to have an online profile. And for a lot of folks, right, like you said, it's not about what you do business with, it's about who you do business with, right? So it is really important that if someone is Googling your name, you may see a bunch of social profiles and not some of it is very personal. You may have things with your dogs and your family and so on. Is that going to convince them to do business with you? Or they quickly see a website that says debdutta.com and they can quickly see, okay, 13 years in tech, she's backed by so-and-so, she's been featured in these places, and this is what her business does. I want to book that call with her. And they've already made up their mind that they want to do business with you. So it's about that first impression, which matters so much. Because eventually there's going to be a lot of, as much as we all feel like our products are super unique, there are going to be other products that look like you. It's your brand that's going to convince them to take that step with you.
And so how does Criya create that is it just for business owners? Because I think one of the things that I thought was so unique about what I learned is that it's not just for business owners. It's really mainly for professionals.
Yes.
And professionals, as a professional, most people who have a professional career aren't thinking, I know as business owners, we're thinking about our public profile all the time. But when I was working for corporate, it never crossed my mind for me to have a personal brand. So tell me, what does the application do?
Yeah, so we focus on so what Criya is it's basically an AI platform where you can simply input your LinkedIn information and it'll spin up a stunning website based on your persona. So if you're a sales engineer, it's, your product, your resume should actually talk about, your sales numbers, your overachievement. Maybe you made President's Club. Versus if you are an engineer, it should talk about your projects. Maybe you have some technical papers and so on, right? So based on your persona, it'll pretty much give you like the Canva for websites, right?
That's cool.
Because we don't know sometimes what we want to articulate, but it kind of gives you those placeholders to do that.
It's like your digital resume, but in a website form. I think that's so clever and so needed. I think it's so incredible that you were able to tie such like your mission back to it. I think it's just such a beautiful story. And when you had this idea, you knew you wanted to go, one thing you said, I remember at the Harvard panel was like, as an immigrant, when starting a business here, you'll always be behind because you won't have the connections of people who are here. So you knew you needed to go get the right strategic people at the table. And you were like, where do I need to look? And you were like, what's the best? I love like how ambitious you're like, what's the greatest place I can go get venture capital from an accelerator? Y Combinator. I'm getting into Y Combinator. How did you end up getting into Y Combinator?
Oh my gosh, it had to happen. In my head, I was like, there's no like way around it. It has to happen.
I need your energy, Deb, of like, it has to happen.
It was one of those things. I'm like, listen, I'm going to go in with the mindset that this has to happen. And even when I remember fortunately for me, like I said, I planned my fundraise, right? So I started the process, and the day I received my first term sheet was also the day I actually had my Y Combinator interview. So the way the YC process works, if folks are unaware, is you go through the application process, and then they select like a handful to go for the interview. So you kind of already passed the sniff test by the time you're at the interview, and then there's like all the group partners that are gonna essentially grill you for 10 minutes, and in those 10 minutes, your life is probably gonna change. So in those 10 minutes, I knew. I'm like, if I'm here, I've passed their sniff test. I have to close this. So yeah, I mean, it's that extreme confidence, right? And I think as a founder, initially, a lot of what we focus on is, oh my God, like the revenue, the business, the product, and things like that. But at the early stage, a VC is investing in you, in the founder. And they're looking for two things, founder market fit. And the other one is, how badass are you? Because it's going to be like, stuff is going to break. Like things are going to hit the fan. Do you have the resiliency to carry through? Mm-hmm. And basically proving that out.
And then from Y Combinator, the rest is history. Criya has now officially launched. We'll share all of the stuff in the show notes to get started and share it with all of your friends and honestly, all of the professional networks. We all have like, my best friend is is an incredible engineer and a supply chain engineer. And she's so brilliant. And I do think like every single one of us needs to have our own personal profiles, but also even when we were talking to Caitlin about is most of the 9-to-5ers are also now looking to become entrepreneurs as well. So when you want to be an author, when you want to, have speaking engagements, when you want to diversify outside of your 9-to-5, we all need to have our profiles. What are some things like, I know within the platform, like I was checking out the platform earlier this morning and you already have users on there that are literally monetizing keynotes and things like that. Can you tell us some success stories of the platform of Criya?
Well, yeah, we have the CMO of C3AI. He's the author of Traction Gap, and he basically is now, he's done his thing over the years, and today he's essentially monetizing his workshops and classes. And these range anywhere from 15 grand and higher. On the other hand, like that's one spectrum of folks, right? And the other spectrum is a whole bunch of people like me. Essentially, they have product jobs or like engineering jobs and so on, and they want to actually put themselves out there. There's a big part of building your brand by paying it forward. So by being a mentor or being a coach, you're showing up to the world as I don't just do my job, I'm actually a person of influence, right? So a huge part of our platform actually has folks who are just giving it, like who are paying it forward for free. They'll give away interview, like the whole layoff was a huge tailwind for us because so many people started seeking support and not everybody can afford a coach, right? Someone who's going to charge several thousands. So it's a whole, like literally like PMs from Google, like senior leadership from like VP of Twitter and so on, Dropbox and so on are on our platform sharing their expertise using the platform. So
you're like the intro, but the professional version of intro for entrepreneurs and meeting entrepreneurs. I think this is so brilliant. I wish you so much success, Deb. I know raising venture capital, I've been on, like, it's not easy. And I recently, something that you all should know by now, it's my company literally is, we've launched Worth. It's super exciting. We did an 8-figure pre-seed right now, and raising capital this time around was so different than raising capital the first time around. And I feel like I recently on an interview, they had asked me, they were like, what is it like the second time around? And I'm like, it's like as if I skipped the first 7 years of the company. And that's how it feels right now, because I don't have to prove myself anymore. This time around, I've returned hundreds of millions of dollars for my investors. So now I can go back, and when it was Sanira, in 26-year-old Sanira, who had no money in her bank account, just an idea, was trying to prove herself. I had so much traction in my business, but people had to take a bet on me, and it was really risky to take a bet on someone like me. Right. And there was a success type, the Mark Zuckerberg of Silicon Valley, that even though you could be young and you could be risky and you could be whatever, there was a profile that I did not fit. And this time around, I didn't have to prove myself to anyone. And as women, that is how I've seen investing. This is primarily 99% of the reason this whole show exists is that we don't get the business advice. It's all the boys club. Less than 3% of capital is going to women, even today, and it's going backwards. And as women, we are given investment for what we've done, not for our potential. And as men, we are given investment for our potential. And so the first time around, I had a lot to prove. And until you got that first vote of confidence, you got that first check, it was definitely not easy. And this time around, I'm not going to say that it's easy. I got to be selective. And this time I got to choose who was going to go on my cap table. And it was a privilege for them to get to be on my cap table and for me to be like, I'm carving out an opportunity for you to invest in our business. And I wish that for every founder on this other side, but that took me a decade to prove myself. And so I really empathize with where you are, and for the women that are raising capital, it is not easy. And you raise capital, you're initially from cold emails, which is like the complete opposite of the advice that I give all of you every day. I'm like, show up, network, everything happens with network. And you were able to do it by showing your profile. And that was through Criya, and showing how great this is, and literally cold pitching investors, which is unheard of right now.
That said, I did all of it. Yeah. It's just so, there are no options. Like you said, like someone in my position, there are no options. You have to try anybody, you're looking for that one person to take that chance on you. So you have to try. I did cold, I did the networking, I cold DM'd people to cold DM others on my behalf, all of it, right? So yeah.
I think it's so incredible. I think what you said about I don't have a choice, I do think that is the founder mentality that you have to have if you really want to push to the next piece, right? If you had a choice, then you take the choice. If you don't have a choice, there is no other choice. And so you do have to have that feeling of there literally is no other option. And so I have to get this, or I have to do this, or I have to win this customer, or I have to get this. And whatever that moment is in time, if you really come with that mentality of there just is no other choice, that's how, that is that resiliency of entrepreneurship. And it's incredibly difficult. And I will say that once you do kind of get past it, and you're in your early stages right now, it's not going to stop. So it's going to get harder. Yeah. And I always thought that once I got this check, or once I got X amount, I always was like, oh my God, when I have my round closed, when I have 10 employees, when I have 30 employees, and I'm sure you're there's a lot of that's going to go through your head right now, or when we have 100, 1,000 customers, whatever that milestone is, when I'm at, for the women that are $1 million in revenue or 10 million in revenue, it will get easier. It doesn't get easier. That is the greatest myth about entrepreneurship, is it does not get easier. The difference is you get better, right? Yeah. So you get better. And so that helps in the next milestone, but the mountain is still going to be there, and you're still going to have to find a way to say, am I going to go over it? Am I going to go around it? Am I going to go under it? Am I going to get through it? So I just really respect and love your resiliency and not taking no for an answer. And I can see why your investors took a bet on the jockey, Deb. So that is incredible. Any advice that you have for female founders right now that want to build technology I did not have you knew how to code your product. I know many women listening have great ideas. They don't have the co-founders. You did it without a co-founder. What advice do you have for those women who don't have the technology experience to start a tech company?
I think the coolest thing about building a tech product is you actually can design it. Like I would do things such as I actually coded the first version only because I went through the first few iterations just with a design. So you can even take things on a napkin and actually get that initial validation. I think you should write your first line of code only after you maybe have 100 yeses from people for exactly the features that you want to build, and you know that they're willing to pay for it. So I do feel like, and there's a lot of tools, there's Bubble, Webflow, and all these things that people can use to quickly get a prototype out there, right?
Anyone that you recommend to get started?
Bubble is great. I think start with Bubble. And Bubble can be a little bit more complex for someone who's never done this before. I mean, I did the first version, Sarina, on WordPress. I found a WordPress marketplace theme. I downloaded that. And my product wasn't even a marketplace, by the way. It was a SaaS product. But I was able to use part of that, it was a no-code thing, but I was able to prove out that, hey, all of you can come and build profiles over here, and you can list your services, and let's start seeing some traction. I think it's about hacking your way and hustling your way through it. There are a lot of solutions out there. That's one thing that I recommend. And the other thing I recommend is, I do think that once you get into the market, resources start to show up. If you sit in your house and wonder, okay, I don't have a co-founder, I don't have a technical background, how am I going to do this? Nothing's going to happen.
Yep.
I actually would start talking to customers, and customers would lead me to, hey, I know someone who can help you with this. So you never know where your connections are going to come from, but I think it's quite easy once you put yourself out there. It's not easy, but the pathways open up once you put yourself out there.
And I do like that you have to go prove yourself from like an MVP perspective, and there are the lowest, like what you said, like put a prototype or get a developer, like not an expensive developer, but to put some sort of like profile together and go get validation that someone's going to pay for it. I find very often that women are, they're like, okay, great. Well, I need an app for it. And I really give advice on the app space that it's very hard to monetize an app. Like it is, you're better off on creating a platform or a feature, like something that can be monetized from a platform perspective than a app. No one's going to find you anymore in 2024 on the app marketplace. And so I know sometimes our gut is like, if there was an app for this, that's great. There are also white label solutions out there that you can do to build out that app. Yeah. And so I hear what you're saying on creating some sort of simple version of it, or getting a very low cost investment, because building software is very expensive. And if you're outsourcing it, then you don't know how to outsource it, then it becomes even more expensive, because you might end up with the wrong developers on the other side, or it's you're writing it on the wrong language. Like there's so many things. And so you've got to have, at that point, invest in someone who is technical in the company. But before you make all that investment, let's go prove it, right? And this applies to, so for those that aren't in tech and are totally tuning us out today, that's totally fine. But this applies to even product-based companies, service-based companies. You've got to go prove your MVP. If you have a new product idea solution and you sell this pen and now you want to sell this line of pencils, go back to the people who are buying the pen and say, hey, I've got this new, and put it, like create on Canva or create whatever, and share the images, be like, hey, here's what's coming. Create a wait list and create hype for it. And once you get validation, then go out and invest in building out this whole line of pencils. And so same goes for tech. And you didn't answer about the co-founder. You decided to do this alone. Are you looking for a co-founder?
It's a strange place to be, no, because I think that after I raised capital, I was in a better place. And also I think this is the thing, right? You keep proving yourself, and like the resources start to open up as you move along the milestones. I met the most incredible CTO who's been with me now. He was one of the earliest LinkedIn engineering leaders. Exited 2 of his own companies. So he's pretty much everything that I looked for. We don't officially he joined at different points. He's not officially co-founder, but plays a huge role in my company, yeah. That's
exciting. I think it looks different for everyone. And I totally agree that your team can become that as well. Yeah. Congrats, Deb. Where can we find you? Where can we follow Criya? And stay tuned for this next episode, because we're actually going to do an interview with the CEO of Planoly and Deb and talk all things being a woman in business and asking for money. So do not go anywhere. But Deb, tell us where we can follow you and how we can support you in Criya.
Well, you guys come out on Criya.co, Criya.co, and just enter your LinkedIn, and you should get your own AI generated website in 20 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
And it's cool because you can just like customize it on your phone and like you can go live in like minutes after that. So,
well, we're really excited for that. Thank you so much, Deb. We'll see you guys next week at CEO School. Thank you for tuning into today's show. If you loved it, leave us a review. We are so proud to bring you authentic conversations, game changer expert guests, and valuable content on and offline. The best compliment you can give us is by screenshotting today's show and tagging us on Instagram at CEO School and at Sanira Madani. We are obsessed with swag, so don't be surprised if we want to send you some. Thanks for tuning into class today, and remember, nothing bad happens when women make more money.